Gents, I just want to pause the episode for a moment to let you know about the Strong Men of Value Academy. You will have heard me refer to it a number of times, and I want to bring more attention to it. So this isn't just a program, it's a life-changing environment and community of men who are focused on personal and professional growth. We're looking at areas of relationships, wealth, and health, things to help you thrive and maximize your life. Imagine having bi-monthly one-on-one coaching sessions with myself, weekly group coaching calls, and an incredible brotherhood of high achievers by your side. Now we're diving into resilience, leadership, and holistic growth to not just succeed in your career, but to thrive in your health and your relationships. Your journey to greatness, it starts here. So join the movement and you can apply for the Strong Men of Value Academy. You can head to themanthatcanproject.com to find out more. Gents, today, Andrew Fitisemanu joins me on the podcast to have an incredible chat. Now, he describes himself as just a man with a voice and a different perspective, using it to help inclusion and diversity groups raise their visibility and also champion his own mental health. Now, he's been fortunate to be involved with Rugby Australia, and they're part of more series, which I've attached a link in this podcast and on the YouTube, which has led to public speaking and with social impact organisations. Now, a lot of his story sort of stems from when he joined the gay rugby team by mistake, and in 2020 he was also in hospital, and he calls it a near-death experience with a chest infection, which turned septic while trying to hide it from his mum. Now, he ended up in ICU, but he's come out the other side stronger than ever, and it's a really awesome chat, and this guy has an incredible bloody moustache. So if you haven't checked him out on YouTube, definitely go check him out. But throughout this chat, we have a little bit of a yarn about where Aussie rugby is right now. What is it? There's some of the challenges that he's faced growing up. What it's like being a gay Pacific Islander rugby player, and one of the sort of first that he really knew of, and what it was like going through ICU and so much more. So, gents, enjoy the episode. It is very, very powerful. And remember, for those, we've got 1 week left. This is launching today, Monday. And next Monday, we kick off the 3-day Strong Men of Value Masterclass, which is free and it's online. It runs over 3 days for about an hour a day in the afternoon, 6 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. There are 34 spots remaining. It has filled up really quickly, and I'm actually stoked for all the gentlemen who have joined. They've already been emailed out their 7-day game plan so they can get that printed off and have it ready for when the workshop kicks off. But if you'd like to register for it, gents, I've also attached the registration link in here, or you can head over to the Instagram, The Man That Can Project, or if you're a member of our free Facebook group, The Man That Can Project, there's plenty of information and links and groups flying around in there. So enjoy the episode, and I look forward to hearing your feedback.
You're listening to The Man That Can Project with Lachlan Stuart, a global movement created to empower men and open up what's really going through their minds by having real and raw conversations about life's unique challenges and our individual ways of processing it all. Welcome to The Man That Can Project.
Welcome to an episode of The Man That Can Project. I'm your host, Lachlan Stuart, and today we've got Andy joining me with the most incredible moustache I've seen in a very, very long time. And we we're just chatting before. It's finally working well for you today. We were saying it's like a game of golf. You know, you have a few bad days, and then it's just that one shot where you're like, oh, this is exactly why I do it. And that's exactly why you're growing the mo at the moment, because it looks incredible, mate. You've nailed it.
Cheers, Lockie. Cheers.
Mate, but thanks so much for joining us today. I have the great privilege of getting to have a yarn to you. We got connected through the Man That Can Facebook community, and we've just been chatting. And then one day you shared a video that you got to be a part of, or a campaign, or it was a campaign, the Part of More campaign, which is with the with the Australian Rugby Union. Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought there's a post you put up about and I thought it was quite a vulnerable post about a previous podcast you had done. You weren't 100% happy with it. And I thought, that's something that is quite, not, I won't say brave, but it was just like, kind of something that you just be honest with, the quality isn't there and you're just not feeling that vibe. And I just thought, I can actually empathize with that, because with this video I didn't want it to become my thing, but I spent a lot of time with the union and the videographer because I wanted to make sure it was right, because I didn't want to be a part of something that wasn't authentic to me. And so that's how, I just wanted to reach out and say, oh, we brothers together, and sometimes if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And so I just wanted to go out, and it took me a bit of time with the guys to make sure it was right. So yeah, and that's basically me sharing with you. And
yeah, and I truly appreciated it, bro. Like, I love it when people either, know someone in their life that they think you would be great mates with or can connect, and they go out of their way to, start a group message, or even what you did, you shared something that you've done that really, I was sitting there watching, I was like, far out, man. Like, it may have taken me another 6 to 12 months to find that out about you, but because you were just, we had that commonality where you felt like there was, you could empathize with what you shared that video, and I was like, man, we need to get you on the podcast, because your story and even stuff that I don't know about you yet will impact so many people, especially with the size of our community. And obviously we've both got rugby in common. And it's what are you thinking of the rugby at the moment, the Australian rugby at the moment? No comment.
I feel real bad because I'm not from Australia, so I just look, you know what? Everybody loves a great underdog story. Hey, I'm just going to say, hey, just ride that wave for a while.
Yeah.
So, but I'm actually quite. I have this thing where the country you live in, you got to support the home team, and I'm really loving seeing the influence of Pacific Islanders in the Wallaby squad as well. And I'm really loving seeing, we exchanged a couple of messages about Quade Cooper. Yep. I personally am not a big fan of his work, but you cannot deny the talent he has.
Yeah. To be honest, I've been so excited, and I've been saying it to a lot of my mates. I can't wait I was always hoping he would get back in, because there's obviously things about the game and maybe his attitude in the earlier days that I didn't like, but I just still, and every time he's playing, I'm drawn to watch. Like, hot or cold, you just don't know what you're going to get. And from what I've been watching with rugby, especially Australian rugby, recently, it hasn't captured me. But you're definitely right with the influence of the Pacific Islanders in the Australian squad, and even in the Super Rugby. Like, for me, and I just love the way you guys play the game, but I also love the fucking passion that you bring to it. It's like, man, even when I was in France playing, and there are a few Fijian boys and Samoan boys, and they're just, the attitude and the excitement and the energy that you guys bring. It's like, you could have the worst day and you'd walk into training, and that is, and all the Pacific Islander boys are just so fucking stoked on life. And I was like, man, I just want to be around you guys nonstop. So adding that to a playing group is incredible. And even, talking to yourself prior, I just get pumped because your attitude and and this is generalizing, but Pacific Islanders, from my experience, hanging out with Pacific Islanders, is just so positive and so happy.
I feel like sometimes I'm not going to be a great advocate.
Right, just retract everything I said.
Yeah, well, I know that I try to really focus on that positive outlook, but there is, and I think this is the thing about Pacific Islanders, because and this is a really big generalization where off the field, everything's great. Well, we're all buddies, but on the field, nah, and then there's it's not a mongrel mentality, but it's just like, oh, it's on, and it's like, yeah, we're here to play, and we'll have a great time. And then, and it's this kind of what you might describe as a kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde mentality, because you've seen where off the field the boys are like, yeah, that was awesome, brother, all good. But on the field, the language changes, and the intensity goes up a notch. And this is where, and I know that people go, oh, you're quite lovely to talk to off the field. I'm going, yeah, that's really great. But on the field, nah, and so, I appreciate that. And that's what I think, what I love about watching Islanders play, where, you get some of these boys' natural talent, you watch them and they're just amazing. And then you hear that, and there's a phrase, we talk about this hyena kind of high-pitched laugh that they've got.
Yeah.
And when I hear that, it drives me nuts. And I'm just going, But that's the thing. You want a diverse team as well. And when I say diverse team, you just want that range of skill sets, and everybody complements each other as well. So, it is my thing,
Yeah. Well, that probably, leads you back to the part of more campaign and what that was all about, like diversity and inclusion. And, you're a huge advocate for it, and that's what you really use your voice for now, and especially obviously within rugby. And for those who haven't seen the video, I've posted it in our Facebook groups, and I'll also put the links in the show notes for wherever you're watching or listening to this, so you can watch the clip. It goes for about 2 minutes, and it's pretty 2 minutes, 3 minutes. It's unreal to watch. But do you want to take us through a bit of a backstory around how that came about for you, and I guess things in the lead up to it? I don't want to give anything away. I'll let you tell the story.
So I'd moved to Melbourne. I've been in Melbourne for 8 years, but I'd moved to Melbourne a few years before that video was made. And I was playing for an inclusive gay rugby team here in Melbourne called the Melbourne Chargers. There's another funny story of how I actually ended up playing for them. But and throughout the course of playing for them, I got to know Neil Hay, and he was the coach of the Melbourne Chargers at that time, and he's fantastic. He's a great advocate for Victorian rugby here in Melbourne, and he shared my story with some counterparts he knew at Rugby Australia, and they were developing a series of A Part of More. So it's community-based, focused around what inclusive rugby looks like from a community aspect. So it's not just about gay rugby players, but it covers the spectrum of, families, wheelchair rugby. So, and it's all about rugby players. It's this great umbrella term. And so I'd been playing for a while, and it was just like, and my story had been shared, and I kind of got a call out of the blue, and they said, "Oh, would you like to be involved in this video?" And I was like, yeah, that's fine. I just thought, yep, you want to share my story? I don't think my story is at all amazing. I just was like, I enjoy playing rugby, had taken time off, and, was not fortunate enough to be great enough to play semi-professional, but just like being involved in team sports. And so they, Rugby Australia called me. They wanted to interview me more about, what it was like for me as my coming out story, playing for a gay team, and what was it like with my experience with teammates, and just my personal journey. Over this time it was really interesting because the Israel Folau story had come out post the recording.
Right.
And all of a sudden my video and story became quite a different narrative of something where I was really strong there around. I didn't want my image being used as a champion piece for inclusive rugby, and to position me as the opposition to a divisive message. And I've always wanted to really focus on, we should be champion those who actually support people. And instead of focusing on what are the negatives, we don't actually talk about the people that actually champion us as people and as men and women or as players. So my story was always focused on, I was fortunate that I was carrying this weight around for a long time, and even still uncomfortable about what it would look like if I were to bring my partner to venues as well. And, and the simplest story for me is that my journey was of acceptance. And basically the story is that, was I prepared to play 80 minutes with everyone else on the field? Do I still train? Do I still put the work rate in? Do I still catch up for a beer? Yeah, that still remains unchanged with me. And so, and that's the message I really wanted to focus on, is that if we can focus on champion people that champion you, then that's how we would succeed together. And so that's essentially how my story and video came out. And there are a lot of other great stories as that part of More campaign. You get to see, I actually don't think my story is about adversity, true adversity. You got to see these stories of these other people in there as well. But I know that my story can help, and that was the other thing why I was quite keen to be involved. Is that as an Islander, for example, I've never seen, and I mentioned this as well, never seen another gay Islander rugby player. So I know the difficulties and struggles I went through. Where if it can help one other person, I think that's what we talk about. It's a really cliche phrase. If it can help one other person, then it's worthwhile. So
what was that like for you? Like not having, because you're definitely right. Like everyone, or most people, I don't want to say everyone, but have someone that they can definitely relate to who's doing something, whether it's professional rugby or basketball or in business and things like that. And as you said, you weren't aware of another gay Pacific Islander rugby player. So for you, you were paving your own way essentially with that. What was it like? What was that experience like for you? Were you always confident in yourself and moving through that? And I know you just said before bringing your partner to a game or to a function. Like, what were you feeling and thinking about during those times? Like that's what because I can't relate to it. So I'm really fascinated to understand that.
I think growing up for me, enjoyed watching rugby. It took me a while to actually enjoy rugby as well, coming from a rugby family. So, I came from a dad who just loved rugby so much that it just became such a big topic for us where I was like, nah, I don't want to play rugby. And so I kind of came into the sport late, but I come from a family of, there's 5 of us and all play sports, athletic. And so, there's always sports in our household. But as I started to really enjoy playing rugby, I started to really look up to the All Black rugby players. And, and there's a great prop from the early 90s, Olo Brown. And so, for me, if I was looking for role models, for Islander role models, I found them in sport. And so growing up, I may have not been able to find a gay rugby player, but I found other idols that I could actually look up to. And even when I talk about this, the sexual identity, and we talk about sexual preference identity, this for me was another journey as well. So we've got kind of these two parallel journeys where, when you're 15 years old, you're clueless. You have no idea what you're going through in life. Yep. And so it's not like I actually knew, I think I do identify with that. But then it's like, well, I don't know. Because being a teenager, that's nuts. You've got hormones kicking through. You're experiencing exams for the first time in your life that's going to determine the rest of the outcome of your life. You've got social circles that you don't even know if you fit into them. So growing up, you've got this whole gauntlet of things that you're trying to actually overcome and meet and challenge. And so what I did in my mindset to keep me sane, it didn't always work, but I just kept trying to find a variety of role models that I could actually could look up to. And sometimes it would be role models reading books. It might be a role model that I found listening to music, and the lyrics were just the right thing for me. So music is actually quite an important component in my life. I don't have a hard-out favorite artist, but there are songs, and everybody's got a song from a particular decade and moment in your life, and when it clicks on, you just go, that's the one.
That's the jam.
Yeah, and it's like, so this growing up phase, it's always trying to find the right model. I'm actually 44 now, and I still look to it. What is that role model that I'm looking for now? Because role models serve a purpose. And I think also role models need to change and adapt, because you as a human being will change and adapt. I think I listened to one of your podcasts earlier, and you got to get that hustle on, and so with that hustle, it's like, you got to find the right role model.
Yep.
To give you that.
I really loved where you said you took certain things from people, like you were having these two challenges with their sexual orientation and stuff. And you said it's like that gauntlet when we're growing up, and there's so many things going on in our life. And generally, as we're getting, when we're younger, we're experiencing all these things for the first time, and it's overwhelming as all buggery. And when we, look for role models, people are looking for this perfect person that needs to have absolutely everything together. As soon as they do one thing wrong, they're like, nah, stuff that person, they're bad, go to this person. And I've always been a huge believer into finding just specific traits or things that people do well. And no one's ever going to be perfect to us. That's what makes us unique as individuals. So if I can see that person, is an incredible dad or partner or just bloke in general, but maybe on the piss they're a bit of an idiot, I can still go, I really respect that element about them, and maybe I don't want to follow the alcohol part of them. And then someone over here might be incredible with how they conduct themselves and how they treat people, but maybe they don't look after their physical health. So I'm always looking at people and just taking that one thing, and I go, I really respect that about you, and that's what I choose to focus on, rather than just dismissing a whole person because of one thing maybe I disagree with.
Oh, 100%, and that's the thing about, I know I don't put myself up as a role model, I just put myself up as, Andrew, and if there's something that I do that you like, great. But if what I do or say does not click with you, then you know what? It's all right. And you can find that right role model for you. So that's part of where I think about my journey and process around how I share the story. And I was quite aware of when this came out, and we're talking about a couple of years ago as well. And so I was quite cautious of, I don't want to be that guy who rode the coattails of this thing and always became known as hey, he's that guy who did that video. And just constantly became, that was my thing, because that is not me. That's a component of who I am. But this is me over here, and these are the other things that I do. And so, and that's where constantly checking, evaluating, well, what am I doing that actually helps others? But then also holding myself accountable too. I know that there are other people in the world that think I'm just filthy, and that thing about perception, so I'm aware of it, and I always think, I could try to be better, and I think that's the thing. If I succeed, great. If I don't, at least I know that I'm trying, and I check myself, and one of the things, I'm actually in this phase of where I am in 2021, is, am I surrounding myself with the right people in this journey of where I want to be? And so, and that's why I've just sat around in a couple of years of just surrounding myself with the right people. Can I talk to people honestly? Because, that's a really important thing about, I really love the Man That Can project, which is around surround yourself with people that will create this momentum of moving forward. However, you do need a bit of a good laugh now and then.
100%.
Yeah. So I like a good laugh. Sometimes my humor is not for all, but hey, I rate myself as a good person to hang out with as well. But not for everyone, but I'm guaranteed you'll have a good time hanging out with me. But that's a bit cocky, but
that's spot on, mate. I love it. It's you're so spot on there, though. Environment and making sure you're around good people who are going to help, enhance you to get to where you want to get to and bring out the best. But I think through my own journey of self-development and trying to be a better version, I almost got an ego because I just became so focused on just being better in every element that I thought, joking around, banter, all that sort of stuff, having a few beers was just below me. Because I was like, which is, I've recognized that now, but there was probably a 2-year stint where I was like, why would you do that, mate? That's not serious. Leave that behind. And obviously you need to find the balance, because at the end of the day, you can learn all of these things, but if you're miserable in the process of doing it, what's the point?
Well, I love this thing about, we talk about, don't be miserable. So my sister is, she's retrained as a nutritionist, and we were talking about these things, and it's the simple lessons, eh? And I was talking to her about what's the better protein, chicken breasts or chicken thighs, And she said, well, it comes down to this. Do you want to be a person who eats chicken breast or chicken thighs? Like, actually, that pretty much makes sense. I was focused on the elements of, which is a better protein for me, compared to fat in the meat. And I just overthought it. And she just said, for the rest of your life, do you want to be that person who eats chicken breast or chicken thighs? And I just went, great, thanks, Marty. And I was like, I should talk to you more often. There's a reason why we have older siblings, and I think that thing where just that example of sometimes it's actually not as complicated as you think, and sometimes choices are quite simple if you actually understand what the problem is. And for me, I was misreading this. I was actually prepared to put myself through a misery of eating chicken breast. I don't mind it, but I'm not a big fan of it. But, so now my grocery list is predominantly chicken thighs. We might have chicken breast once in a while, but chicken thighs is what I prefer to eat.
So, I was wondering which one it was going to be. That's for sure.
What would your option be?
Probably thighs as well, actually. Yeah, definitely thighs.
Mate, chicken thighs are universal. You could do so much more with it. Chicken breast, I don't know. Just chicken thighs, everything takes marinade pretty well. Even if you leave it in a pan, it doesn't actually dry out as much as chicken breast. Universal meat.
My missus just walked past, and here she can't hear what's being said here, but she hears the thighs. Yeah, I like thighs the best. We're talking about food, chicken prep. She's like, oh, okay, perfect. But thighs.
Chicken prep.
It's always breast. Thighs. But I think that's where a lot of people get caught up in a lot of their life. There's, we can look at, as you said, in with rugby or the part of more series and all of that, like there's an umbrella within everything, and then there's like subcategories which you can sort of niche down on things. The same with nutrition and self-help and relationships and all that sort of stuff. There's like a blanket approach, and then you can fine-tune specific things, but most people aren't even getting the blanket thing right. And that people are out drinking beers, for example, or neglecting their sleep, and they're trying to do their micronutrients, which is the most stressful, from my experience, the most stressful, boring way to live and eat. Yet here they are sinking tins on the weekend. I'm like, well, if you really care that much about your food, maybe you should just also cut out the alcohol on the weekend and just simplify the process. And then once you get consistent in minimizing your alcohol use or whatever it is, you can slow things down. That might be a little bit loud. Sorry.
No, I hear a microwave beep. I know that sound. I know that. I think that what we're talking about here is like consistency, isn't it?
Yeah.
And so in order to not, and I speak for myself, and I talk to people where, trying to attain perfection is nuts, unless you're that personality type A.
100%. And there never is perfection, like especially unless, in my opinion, you're going to be an elite athlete or at the top of whatever it is, and you require those sacrifices. But for most people, we're just trying to get the most out of life across various different areas, which means if you go all in on one thing, like just living off chicken and broccoli, which for me would never work ever, you're sacrificing so much more, and you've got to then weigh up what's really worth it for you.
Oh, yeah. And I think that's what it really comes down to, what it comes down to. And I think it's really interesting when, just watching your story about, you're getting married soon.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's really interesting because I think about with my partner and I around how do we fit together in this plan of this foreverness. And for example, so my partner is a triathlete.
Yep.
So even if we talk about the different types of sports, and people, I was explaining like rugby is kind of a sprint-based sport, where triathlons is an endurance-based sport. So even for us, we don't train together because it's ludicrous,
Yeah.
Our nutrition needs are completely different. And so we have to find what this compromise is. We used to have arguments over what we would have for dinner because the amount of carbohydrates he would have would just be, this is making me sick, like I like a bit of rice, but I couldn't eat 2 cups of rice in a sitting, where And so I think this is the whole thing about the striving for perfection and what that consistency means, but it also is how does that consistency impact on other people? And that's the other thing that I've been looking at is I don't want to be a dick to people as well. And I realize that if I become that person who solely becomes focused on I have this analogy of nutrition and food, because it's a universal thing that everybody talks about, where just because I prefer chicken breast, actually my partner hates chicken. I prefer chicken thighs. He hates it, and he prefers chicken breast. And I'll go, okay, well, we'll compromise, So we'll just have a bit of both, and we'll just make sure that we're both happy because we can compromise. It's chicken. At the end of the day, it's just chicken.
Yeah, keeping it simple. We can looking to split it up.
Yeah, and the other thing is, what is the key issue here for us? It's like we just need to make sure we've got good nutrition, which we do. Do we support each other? And that's why I come back into your story about what this life looks like when you enter a married, as obviously being a couple, but marriage is a different notch. That's like you're basically signed. There's no returns on this one here.
It's cashing in.
Yeah, pretty much. Off the market. So
scary, but it's exciting at the same time. But take us back to last year. So last year you were, so obviously you've overcome some hurdles and you're a part of that incredible inclusivity campaign. I think the way that you wanted the message to be portrayed, where it wasn't about division, which is, there is enough division going on in the world at the moment with, it's just crazy. Like people don't seek to understand. It's just like mine's the only way to do things and fuck you and carrying on, which, I can understand why people do that. It's just not the way I choose to do things, because I think everyone can teach you something you don't really know about. And, like we've already said, there's certain things that you can really enjoy about certain people's, and they can equally have traits that you're like, man, can't tolerate that. But
it's that A-type personality, isn't it? That everybody's got that one mate, and it's like, like you've always got that one mate who became a professional rugby player, and then obviously there's a reason why they became a professional rugby player, where you're cool, but we can't hang out anymore because you're just driving me up the wall. So I guess, sorry, I digress. I tend to waffle a bit. But last year was actually another hurdle that I experienced, which was, so I did the video and then I started getting involved with how do I use my voice for influencing and supporting the causes of what this LGBTIQ plus community needs. And so I was doing a few public speaking events, and then the pandemic hit, and so I had planned and, with a group of doing events around the country. So we were pretty much going to hit the road and talk about the narrative of how diverse Pacific Islander community is and the spectrum of what it looks like for us. And people could ask questions, and the questions of role models was asked as well. And who did I look up to? And so I was all, G'd up, good to go, hit the road, let's get out there. Pandemic hit. And so obviously we're not going anywhere. And obviously I'm Victoria based, so, we went into lockdown pretty quick. And then during lockdown, I still wanted to keep up training and exercising and kind of set myself weird challenges to keep it interesting. So I would go for, 2-hour walks in the morning because I still want to get up at 5 and just do something. But during that stage, somehow I developed a lung infection, and I didn't even realize it. I just actually thought I'd damaged the pulled a muscle in my rib cage. And I didn't even fall over. Just one of those freak things where, well, I don't know. You just go, like, it's like you cork your hamstring. Nobody knows how they cork a hamstring. You're just running one day and you cork it. Daft. But I clutched over and I grabbed my rib cage going, oh, this isn't good. So I went to my physios, booked them up, and luckily, the essential workers, and they gave me exercises. But over a period of 5 weeks, it wasn't improving. I was actually getting worse. And I actually, so I'm a big guy, and I actually lost close to close to 20, about 17 kilos in body weight over 5 weeks. So I went from eating healthy meals to could barely move, couldn't even walk down my hallway, which is roughly 10 meters, and just slept. Yeah, so, and it was having night sweats and just, couldn't work out what was going on. And that's the thing in lockdown, you don't realize that you're not going anywhere. So I just thought, I'm just getting bored, just probably a bit tired. This recovery is taking a lot longer. Long story short, I ended up going to my GP and going, hey, things aren't feeling good, eh? And he actually asked, are you still walking? I said, I can't even walk anymore. And he said, yeah, that's not a good sign for someone like you who's active, physically active and training, and you were going from like 2-hour walks in the mornings plus doing a home workout with, I actually made my own sandbags during lockdown as well. I actually got real creative with weights. But we went through this, and somehow I had developed an infection in my chest cavity area, so the pleura space, which is just out between your rib cage and your lungs, and it actually had filled up with pus, and it had developed into septicemia. Yeah, so went to hospital, and and literally it was one of those moments where I don't want to sound dramatic, but it was kind of like, shit, this is serious. I'm sitting in the car driving off, and it's a bad sign when you go get an X-ray, but it's not the radiologist who comes out, but it's the radiologist and the practice GP, and they come and talk to you together, and you just go, oh, nah, this is not good.
Trouble here.
Trouble, and I'm just going, what is it? And they're going, you got to go to the hospital now. We've called your GP. He sent a letter to the hospital. They're expecting you. Go into the hospital. And this is where literally just my whole body started to shut down. And so I had to have emergency surgery to try to clean out and drain the infection in that lung space. And then on top of that, post-surgery, ended up losing quite a bit of blood in there as well. So I had a couple of blood transfusions and just didn't recover, and ended up in ICU for a few days afterwards. So something where I'm feeling a bit all right had gone downhill, and and because it's the pandemic as well, so I'm there wondering COVID symptoms is it, and so thank God it wasn't COVID related, but it was just one of those things that happens. People get lung infections or an infection of some sort, and so that really knocked me out, because not only had I lost 17 kilos in weight, I'd lost muscle mass. I have a kind of literally an open chest around the side of a scar where they actually, had to crack me open to get in there to clean it out. Post-surgery, I had a couple of tubes coming out for the drain. Yeah, so it was one of those things where I was like, whoa, this is surreal. You think about it, it could happen. And I was in hospital. And the other thing is, I was talking to my sister and my brothers in New Zealand, and I've got a brother who lives up in Noosa, and decided to keep it a secret from my mum, because, like all mums.
Why is that?
Well, we were thinking all mums want to do is get on a plane and come over and look after you. And we're just going, oh, no, I can't get my mum to travel during the pandemic. She's in her 70s, And so we tried to keep it a secret, and then and then we ended up having to tell her the waterworks started to happen. And, I'm on the phone with her, and I'm telling her, Mum, I'm fine. Came out of surgery, I'm all right. I talked to her before, talked to her afterwards. And that was just kind of a really chaotic time for me as well. And then during the pandemic, my partner wasn't able to always see me. So, I was only limited to one visitor a day. And so took me a long time to get back into training, where breathing, I still have a few breathing issues at the moment, so I still have a few checkups with the hospital.
How was that for you mentally, though, going from a point where you lost all that weight, all the muscle, you couldn't see, people that you cared about?
I think it's not till afterwards I realized that, I was pretty fortunate. and that it could have been worse. It's one of those things with septicemia and the infection itself is that, there's a tipping point that your body goes through where your organs literally shut down. And I was just fortunate that at that stage, I'd gone to the hospital just at the right stage. But I also know that I took a positive out of that as well. And I know people go, that's a bit weird, what's your positive? And I actually thought about it. And, and I've got a few GP friends, and they were saying, so based on your blood results and their perspective is that you must have actually had a pretty good baseline of health and strength before you went into the hospital. So, I mean, like, it's amazing that people are actually surprised that I was walking, with that level of infection and just how my body was reacting. And so I took that as
weapon.
Yeah. I mean, like, people go, you must be a beast. And I go, no, just me. So mentally, I knew that I had to start really focusing on what's best for me. And you actually really get to see the positives of the people around you. My partner and I were talking, and that was good. And then I had mates who actually had come to the hospital. I was only like one visitor a day. I had a mate named Ash. He's really good. He snuck me in some sugary treats, a lot of lollies. And so it was good because after the lockdown and being at home, you have that worry about being isolated. But I actually was lucky that I would actually think I'm actually quite fortunate because I had good people around me that actually picked me up. And so, and I don't think this illness for me has actually changed on who I am. I just think I've become more appreciative of the people around me who actually reached out to me and said, do you need anything? Do you want anything? And even when I said I didn't want a visitor, they still turned up. So mental health for me is really something I struggle with, and I'm quite open about that. And that's because, I was 18 when I'd been diagnosed with depression. And so for me, it really is key for me to keep focusing on what is the positives and just making sure that if I'm falling into a rut, that's not good for me. I've got to start. I have a few techniques that I start to work out what those triggers are.
What are some of your techniques? So
one of the things I noticed that if I'm not looking after myself, I know there's something not right there. Sleep patterns. My sleep patterns are out. Even if, and it's little things about I'm a bit of I like to actually I'm not a journal type of person, but I like to keep track of, do I go to bed at the same time? Do I get up at the same time? And if I have a routine, because for me, routine is important. And if I deviate from that routine, or if I catch myself going in the circular motion of negativity, then I realize I've got to sort this out quick. And some of that is I check myself and I go, I know what's going on here. Yeah. And so for me, it's that environment, and I have to change the environment that I'm in. And it's in simple, some things where I change my training routine, find the time of day that I can actually get a workout in. And so the triggers are quite unique to me. It's where when work gets a bit overwhelming, I'll just tell people, hey, I just need to take time out for a second, and so I'll just be really clear. I need to compose my thoughts. I need to actually work out what this is. And sometimes, that's for me what works when I start identifying those triggers where I can't see the answer to the problem. Then I know that is a barrier to me, so I just have to stop. And sometimes, I've got to listen to people around me when they say, Andrew, you've got to stop. You are just picking at it, and that's part of my personality type, which I will just be relentless and stubborn until I get to the answer and probably won't sleep. And then, because I must be right sometimes too, so I know that's my personality. I like to win an argument. And even if I'm wrong, I still won't admit it. I will still find a reason why my argument may be wrong, but it is still right. But then again, I just admit I'm wrong. I don't mind saying sorry if I've really messed it up.
Yep.
But it's that's who I am. But to answer that question around triggers, I also know the environments for me is really important. So I choose not to put myself in environments that are highly stressful, and then that also means it actually means I have to sacrifice time and spending it with people who do want to spend time with me. And I realize, they're great people, but if I'm around certain people for too long, I just can't be around them all the time. So I've got to really portion out how I actually put myself in those spaces where, everyone's got a mate. You just go, hey, you're great to hang out with, but whoa.
Yep.
The mate who wants to keep partying until like 6 o'clock in the morning, nah, I'm going to go home. I'll call you in the morning.
Yeah, see you later.
Yeah, that's it.
It's cool to see over a few things that you've said, like obviously your level of self-awareness around the triggers and the tools and strategies that you've got to look after that. But even the doctors or people were saying to you, like your level of health was what helped you through septicemia, and all of those sorts of things when you were ill. But also communities have been such a powerful thing for you, like obviously with the rugby and everything like that, where you've felt it's been inclusive and it's allowed you to portray or vocalize your story and your message without wanting to create division and say, no, you're wrong, you're right. It's more about like, it is what it is, and I'll support those who support me, and not really make it rain on people who don't. Whereas a lot of people try to bring the other side down if you're not in that supportive side of things.
Yeah. And what I've done is I've really realized that my time is quite valuable. And when I say that, not in a cocky way, it is valuable. Everyone's time is valuable. So I know that through the Part Is More campaign with Rugby Australia and the different, the ABC stories that were written in interviews that have been, high school teachers have reached out to me,
Yep.
And so I find that, one of the things that I know I can actually be active in is actually replying back to them. And some of them have year 12 students writing assignments. They don't want to ask me from my perspective on things. Literally, I got a mate this morning, Stu. He's a teacher at another school. And he said, hey, do you remember that story you told us about what it was like for you being called a fag in front of your entire school and what that means to you as an individual and how that still shapes you? Can we talk about that? And I said, yeah. I'm quite happy to talk about that, because he's looking at, he's dealing with young men now who don't understand the ramifications of the statement you say can still have weight in the next 20 or 30 years for an individual.
Can you share that with us?
That story?
Yeah.
Oh, mate, I thought this another time.
We can have you back for a second episode.
No, I'm just kidding. So I remember the story quite clearly, and so I was 15. So if you go to a high school, which has rugby as a really strong sport, and you have these traditional annual matches against the local other high school, where it's the one event that the first 15 is always looking up for.
Yep.
And so I I'd only really started to get my head around rugby, started playing it for a few years, and I got selected to start, and that's a big thing, 15 years old, getting started to pick in the annual traditional, and, and I'm, you're a bit nervous, it's like, whoa, whole school's actually there to watch, and I'm feeling quite nervous because my parents had turned up, they took the day off work to make sure they could come watch me, and I've got uncles who are old boys of the school as well. So it's kind of not just a school event, but my family are there. And I'm from Wellington in New Zealand. So the weather's not great. It's a cloudy day, but it's muddy rugby, which is actually pretty good to play in, because you just slide around. So it's, good, honest, good fun. But I remember there was a portion in the game and it was a line out, So I'm in a line out. Ball gets thrown in, and I turn to chase the ball as because it gets thrown down to the number 8 down the back. And so as I turn my back to the school because they're on the sideline, and then I hear out loud, "Fits you fag." And it was one of those things where it cut through all of the noise, and I heard it, and in my mind, I switched, and people don't realize that you switch quite quickly. And I started to get pissed off, and I thought, hey, I actually earned this spot to be here. Yeah. And I'm actually here representing, the school that we talk about, this brotherhood of brothers from St. Pat's Town. And then somebody was a coward and was prepared to call me a fag behind my back while I'm playing there. And I started to remember that I got angry. But then what happened is that it messed up with my mindset during the game. And then we got to halftime and I got pulled off, and so for me, that is a negative memory. But, and so when I talk about as a 15-year-old, you've got all these different things, what's going on. And then not only was I embarrassed that my parents were there, and I was actually imagining, what am I going to get? A bollocking from my parents because I just had a coward behind me call me a fag. And not only my parents there, I've got an older brother and my uncles are there. So it's become this thing where it becomes this weight and a burden that sits on me. And now I'm trying to actually comprehend, what do I do now? Where do I actually have to have this weird conversation with my parents around, are you gay or not? Or do I have another conversation about why did you come off at halftime? Or, so the thought process around that kind of just goes through your mind. So, and I remember that story quite clearly. And so I really start to think and talk about it's these microaggressions that we constantly have in society where, I tracked down the kid, that's my thing. I just knew that voice. And so I tracked them down and I said, did you call me a fag? And I was like, no, I didn't. I was like, no, you did, because I actually heard you, because I know you, and the boys, it's guy from the circle of friends that we've got, and I was just like, well, look, I know it's you. And that's all it is. I just know it's you, called you out on it. You're not going to be I use this phrase, you're not going to be man enough or human enough to admit it that you said it. You're just shitting your pants because I caught you. But still, I may have been strong enough to confront the bully, but still in my mind, it still sits there. It sits there where I might go to a job interview, or I might just be walking down the street and it just pops in. And that's that thing about that mental health scenario that I really have to be aware of is, you become your own worst enemy, because I revert back to that 15-year-old and I have to remember, no, I'm 44 years old. I took that opportunity and I turned it into something else. But there are a lot of men out there who can't, or who are still stuck in that phase. And so that's why I was really find that if I can use storytelling of this is my story, if it helps, it helps. If it doesn't help you, just keep looking for that person who can help. I'm not the answer to everything, but if my story helps, let it help, And this is where people ask, well, how did you get your mindset around? I said, that took a long time. I had an awful, my 20s were awful, drinking a lot, partying, didn't want to play rugby anymore, just kind of just reverted back into my own kind of social circle because I was earning money, got a job, started earning money, started enjoying going out, maybe playing the social game on a Saturday if I felt like it. If I was too hungover, didn't care. And I realized, but I realized later on in life, I actually wasn't doing myself any favors, so I had to make changes. And so making changes has been really, for me, like a 15-year journey. I look back at photos of what I look like and I was going, I'm actually so embarrassed that I got myself into a state of this unhealthy outward appearance where I was actually reflecting what I felt on the inside and it was actually coming out on the outside, which was, just didn't really care about myself. quite happy to let people create negative opinions or perceptions of me because I created this persona of you can't come near me. And so that's where I really have been working on. Can't help myself and I can't help others, for example, if I don't focus on what I do, and it's the thing, walk the talk,
100%.
Simple messages, mate.
It is, at the end of the day, when you really think about life and how we want to feel and various things, it's simple, but we make it complex by, overthinking, having people get in our ear and criticize us or call us names and stuff. Like, it's just the environment that we're in really helps to overcomplicate shit. It's like if you go out into, even for me, when I come up to Toowoomba, it's so chilled out here. We're on 5 acres and it's dead quiet. And it's like all the stress that I carry Monday to Friday when I'm in the city just disappears. And you're like, I'm stressed over nothing. I'm stressed over someone's opinion that I don't even care about. But I've got one last question for you, and then I'll let you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. I'm sure you've enjoyed this, mate. It's been unreal.
Yeah,
but what is your definition of being a man?
It's really interesting. I've been listening to a few of your other podcasts and the different answers guys give you, and then I was thinking, I've got to think of something, and then I realized that it depends on. So my answer today, and I may change tomorrow because tomorrow I become a new person because
That's fine, right? Yeah.
And so my definition of a man is just be a good human, And when I say that, be a good human, which is there is a phrase that I start to actually think about, which is empathy, and how can I empathize with others? And I think that's part of the thing about being a man. As men, we have a level of privilege in society. And as that privilege gives us, and if we can use empathy to understand other people's situations, then we should be using that in supporting others. So to really think about what it is to be a man, which is, support others when you can and if you can, because you don't need to put yourself at risk. I've seen plenty of good guys try to help other people out, but I'm going, yeah, but you're doing yourself no favors. So to be a man is if you can help others by being a good human and just be honest with what you can deliver on, it really short, simple lessons. And that's where I love this phrase, and it kind of summarizes how I feel about being a man, which is, measure twice, cut once. Just use that phrase whenever I'm in a meeting with people, just talking to people, and I'm going, measure twice, cut once. I remember that from a woodworking class that I did when I was like maybe 8, and I realized that's a good lesson to live by.
100%. Simple and effective. I'm a chippy by trade, so it definitely is simple. But Andy, mate, thank you so much for your time and sharing your story. And obviously we could go into so much depth, and we'll definitely have you back on because there's more questions I'd love to ask and learn about you. And obviously as your life, like you said, you're going to be a different person tomorrow, as will I. So it'd be cool to check in. But for everyone listening, I'll put Andy's socials in the links, whether you're on YouTube or the podcast, or if you join the Man That Can Facebook group, you're in there. So you can connect with Andy through that and follow his journey and see all the impressive messaging he's putting out there.
Cheers, Lockie. Well, good to meet you. Obviously look forward to a future chat. Maybe a beer. We'll see what happens with lockdown.
Yeah, mate, I'm keen as for a beer.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Man That Can Project podcast. My name is Lachlan Stuart, and I hope you enjoyed this episode and found it helpful. If you did, please take a moment to rate and review the Man That Can Project on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our newest episodes. We'll see you again next time.